This is our Mid-American Conference Championship game radio guys preview. Joel Godet, Rich Spizak is below me from the Ball State Radio Network, from the Buffalo Radio Network, Scott Wilson, and the man that broadcasts both the Buffalo Bulls and Keith Smart, Paul Peck, is directly to my left. Guys, it's going to be interesting on Friday night in Detroit. First off, welcome to everybody. We'll go around the horn. What are we looking forward to most?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I mean, it's just been a special season here, obviously, and I think this was a realistic goal for Buffalo when the season started, and those don't always fall in place when you think about them generally in August, but in this case, in November. For things to have fallen into place for the Bulls and know that they're kind of one step away from achieving a goal, and kind of tied to the fact that it was the same goal 2 years ago and they came up very painfully short. I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of anticipation.
I'm just thankful that we've been able to play it all. Because like Paul said, we kind of expected to be at least in the conversation for going back to Detroit and playing for a championship. And then all of a sudden there was just no more football, and then it came back. So I'm grateful that we're there.
Well, Spizak, beside the fact that you're wearing blue, round this out for us.
I just have a blue shirt on, but no, I think, being picked, Buffalo was picked by everybody, media, coaches, and it's a lot tougher when you're picked to win it, and they did, and because they're a good football team, and Ball State, it's a special season. We kind of thought they'd be pretty good, and a lot of returning seniors, but they've improved every week, and so this is I think it's a special game, not only for Buffalo because of the reasons Paul mentioned, but Ball State. It's been a while since we've been here, and I think we're going to see a good ball game.
Well, Spies, let's start with you on that. Our first topic for discussion. Ball State has played in 6 games, 5 of them decided by 1 score. Buffalo has won by an average of 31 points this year. What type of game are you expecting?
Well, whoever wins this game, I don't think it's going to be by touchdown. It's going to be by more than that. I really do. Just because of, Buffalo is so explosive, but we can score a lot of points too. So I just got a feeling. Last week I kind of felt it would be close against Western. This is going to be. I think we're going to see a lot of points by both teams, and I think it'll be well over a touchdown, whoever wins.
I think Rich has a good point. The challenge for us on the Buffalo side is the Bulls have been so good, it sometimes has been hard to get a gauge on how good they are, particularly with some of the teams that they've played. So, even the game that Scott and I thought was going to be the game of the year, and we're really expecting a nip and tuck game, the Kent State game, because Kent State had been playing so well, proved to not really be that close. And that was a lot of points, and it was back and forth with scores, but it ultimately didn't really end up in a close game. Does that show us how good Buffalo really is, that over what might at the time have been the second best team in the MAC? So all that said, Ball State's a really good team with a lot of really, really good players. And I am expecting nothing like some of these other games that Buffalo has played this year. Could the Bulls win this by 2 touchdowns? I think they can, because I really think they're that good. But it wouldn't surprise me if this game is within a touchdown well into the third quarter. And then to Rich's point, all it takes is a turnover or a mistake here and there. And we saw that in 2008, how it happened. That's all that it off, for this to be a 14-point win for one team or the other.
I remember there was a controversial call there, wasn't there, at the goal line?
Yes, there was, Rich.
Yes, there was.
It could have, maybe should have, Scott, help me out on this one, been a Mikal Lewis touchdown that would have negated thus the then play that wound up in the fumble that started the big comeback for Buffalo.
I don't remember that. That one doesn't. That one doesn't ring a bell. I expect this to be a fourth quarter game, which it makes me interested, because the Bulls and the starters really haven't played in the fourth quarter yet this year through 6 games. And I mean, that's a sign that things are going really well, but that's also something that I'm interested to see what happens when they get pushed. they've been crushing everybody. And hasn't been much resistance, especially late in these games. You guys don't have to ask those questions. Those are kind of already answered for you. You guys are hungry, and Ball State has had those close games, and you've come through in them. Except for that ridiculous interception in the first game, which I was actually watching. It was a commercial in our game, and I still can't believe that McWood got up and got that. I thought you guys were destined for that win. But, I'm interested to see what happens if we get into the fourth quarter. The Bulls, for as good as they've been, have not been in the fire in those types of games, and how they would respond.
Let's break down some X Factor players here off the get-go. Paul, we'll start with the guy that everybody is talking about for Buffalo, then we'll flip it around to Ball State's most dynamic offensive player with you, Rich. But Jared Patterson, Paul, no one has shut him down. Can Ball State?
Well, I'm inclined to say they're going to have a hard time doing it. If Ball State lets them run for 125 yards, that's a victory, right? I mean, that's kind of the bar that Jarrett has set and raised. And it's not all Jarrett. I mean, he's a great player in his ability to have great vision and see the hole, and in his short area quickness and his contact balance to throw all these analytic terms out at you are amazing. But half of his, if not more than half of his touchdown runs have been untouched because the offensive line has been so good. So, his life has been at times very easy because of what they've been able to do up front. So it's a deadly combination. I mean, the line opens up big holes. He runs through them. He knows where to go. And when the holes aren't so big, he figures out a way to get through them himself too. So, you guys know better than I do, but just in my preparation, Ball State's run defense has been okay this year. Sometimes better, sometimes not. A few teams, looks like you played, didn't really try to or want to run the ball a whole lot. I'd be shocked if Jarrett is held under 100 yards, and that seems kind of like a crazy thing to say, but that's just how good he's been. And it's not just this year. It's really been his whole career that way.
Well, let me ask you, how did Miami hold him to 73 yards? That's the only team that really held him down.
Scott, I think I'm going to let you answer that one, because I think you and I have the same answer to that.
They just threw 9 guys in the box. I mean, they just let everybody crash down as hard as they could. And if you look, that's the one game where we were able to throw for 300 yards.
Yeah, you answered it. You did the right thing.
Eventually.
Spizak, what's the answer for Ball State?
Well, the answer for Ball State, is Justin Hall. I mean, without Justin Hall, we don't win the last game. But the difference to me between, Patterson's a great player. He can touch the ball 30 times. Justin Hall can't touch it that much unless they put him at Wildcat and come up with some new ways to get him the ball more. I mean, there's the difference. Jared Patterson's going to touch the ball twice as much, and he's electric. As good as Caleb Huntley is, and I wish Caleb could have played in this game, Jared has got some things that Caleb does not have. He could stop on a dime and go 90 degrees, and he can keep moving, and you can't touch him. And Huntley's a different kind of runner, but a very good runner. So it's a shame that those two couldn't go head to head. But Justin Hall's the guy that is a difference maker for Ball State. We've got some good ones. We got a lot of good ones, but he's the difference maker.
Well, we know about Jared Patterson. We know about Justin Hall. Guys, who's the X factor that is not in that mix for either team? Paul, we'll start with you. Who wins this game for Buffalo if Buffalo wins that is not named Patterson? Either one of them.
Malcolm Kuntz is the name that comes to mind, and Rich's points are really good. I mean, this is going to be as good a test as Buffalo's defense has had, in a long time. I mean, even, Miami had some similar kind of players to Justin Hall, but some of them were injured and didn't play earlier in the year. So Malcolm Kuntz is a difference maker at defensive end. He's already going to the Senior Bowl. I think he's got a pretty good shot at being an NFL draft pick. He's right there second, in the MAC in sacks and first team All-MAC 2 years in a row. I mean, and the great thing about Malcolm is last year you had Taylor Riggins at the other defensive end spot, and they were 1-2 in the MAC in sacks, and you had to pick your poison on where you were going to focus your blocking. Well, Taylor hasn't played this year because of a hamstring injury and is not expected to play Friday, but that hasn't really slowed Malcolm down. That's the sign of a great player. You can bookend them and single blocking and all other stuff. They'll take advantage of it, but teams now know they go into it focused on having to block number 50, chip him with tight ends and backs, and he's still almost always in the backfield. The sort of the sub X factor is, to Rich's point, the outside linebackers for the Bulls, and in particular, Tim Terry, Tyree Thompson, and Gaddafi Wright, are going to have a lot of responsibilities, I think, on that quick game with Justin Hall. And they're pretty athletic and they can run pretty well. And I think beyond the corners, I think those are the guys that have to make those tackles. Lance Leipold talked about it in the press conferences that, and it sounds elementary, but the Bulls have to tackle well. And I think what he means there is they need to tackle Hall well and not let him catch a 2-yard pass that turns into a 25-yard gain.
Rich, who's the guy for Ball State?
I thought a lot about this, but the guy that always pops up and makes plays, and he has through the years, Antoine Davis. I think he's the guy. He's come up with so many third down and long plays. He's a senior. He's the unnoticed guy out there, but I think he's going to make a couple big plays in this game that really make a difference.
Let's talk about something outside of the offensive side now, Scott. The thing that is more likely to happen first in the game Friday night, Ball State sacks Kyle Van Treese, or Alex McNulty, all-conference kicker that he is, actually makes a field goal. Neither of those two things have happened this year.
Ooh, gosh. Oh, man. I would probably say field goal. No, wow. I'll say field goal. I'll say field goal just because, Buffalo hasn't passed that much this year. So, they don't really give you that many opportunities. These teams have only had 12 opportunities basically per game to get a sack in there. So I will go field goal. Man, that is tough because I think that this coaching staff learned over the last couple of seasons, just from being in the MAC, that if you've got a 4th and 2 at the 35, you got to know what the kicking situation is in this conference. Other than Sloman last year for Miami, you're usually 95% of the time better off just trying to go for it. And that's kind of the approach that they've taken. But the offensive line has played really well. So I would probably say field goal. Does it have to be a made field goal or just an attempt?
He's 0 for 1.
No, I would say field goal.
We'll take that. Ball State had, 3 red zone defensive drives last week in the first quarter that resulted in 3 points. So we'll see if they can't do that again on the defensive side. Scott, we'll stay with you on the next question. One thing that you're looking for in this game that Buffalo can exploit, where do they have the upper hand going in?
I think the easy answer is probably in the running game. Just the size and strength that they have up front, and that's where they're the most comfortable, is the running game. And they have 2 pretty good running backs in Jared Patterson and Kevin Marks. And, we joke all the time when we get into the 4th quarter and Kevin Marks is taking handoffs as the backup where, if Jared Patterson wasn't there, Kevin Marks would be breaking all kinds of records. And instead he's kind of stuck behind this unbelievable talent. And he still is a really good player. And I just think that the strength of this team, they have leaned into it all year, is the running game. And if there was something there to exploit, it would be that. If you look statistically, your Ball State defense has given up some passing yards this year. The Bulls haven't played into that. Buffalo has not. They just haven't been calling plays like that other than the season, the second game of the season against Miami. So I think it's the running game. They're just going to lean into their strength and try to do what they do best.
Rich, where does Ball State have an advantage?
I think we have an advantage just for the number of receivers we have that are pretty good receivers. They can't ignore Davis, and I don't think, and they can't ignore Tyler. And now McCoy's coming out. And then you got Justin Hall. So I think just the fact that we have a number of receivers that are decent is going to spread them thin a little bit. And they've been beaten deep, as bad as they beat Kent. Kent got behind them. And so I think that's something that we need to exploit in some way if we have the time to get it downfield. And we haven't thrown the ball a lot downfield. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle Kuntz. And, Mike knew in the past there's a lot of quick passing. So Kuntz won't get there, a lot. But there'll be times where we'll have to get the ball down the field. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in that situation.
All right, Paul, we'll come to you on this one. These are two teams. We've talked about 2008. Ball State wants to get that title that eluded it. Buffalo wants to get the title that eluded it in 2018. This current Ball State team has been on a very meteoric rise, having taken its lumps over the last couple of years. So each has their own motivations. It's very a cliche sports question. People always say, who wants it more? As if either of these teams don't want it. But what's your take on the motivations for these teams and how that plays into the grit down the stretch Friday night?
Well, I think you got to go back a couple of years with the progression of what Buffalo's program has done, which was they go 6-6 in 17 and don't get a bowl. So that was the motivation going into 18. And 18 is a 10-win season, but they lose the MAC championship game by falling apart in the fourth quarter and then lose their bowl game. 2019, lots of changes, change of quarterback, lots of change of weapons, but they find themselves and then they bounce back from an 0-2 MAC start to win their first bowl game. So, you keep checking all these boxes. So now the next box to check is win a MAC championship, win the division, win the title. There's 5 starters left from the team, and I think 13 players that played in the 18 MAC championship game. And at the beginning of this year, the way the schedule fell out, it was Northern Illinois that was the opener. Now, Northern Illinois of 2020 didn't look at all like the one from 2008, but that didn't stop that game from being looped on the locker room TVs, and one of the players called it the revenge tour because it was Northern Illinois who beat him in the MAC championship game. Then it was Miami that had beat them the year before. Then it was Kent that had a big fourth quarter comeback to beat him at the end of the season last year. So the guys have sort of been reveling and finding a reason to be fired up for every one of these games. So I would suspect that 2018 MAC championship game fourth quarter collapse is back looping on the video screens in the football complex again, because that's the one prize that has now eluded this team as they continue to try to take these steps and check these boxes off in making this a program that now can say, there isn't much that we haven't done yet.
Rich, do you buy the DOB mentality of Ball State and Drew Plitt telling us literally before the season that there is no other better team in the MAC? It seems like Ball State truly believes it can and should win this game on Friday night.
Well, they definitely do. The will to win, you can't measure the will to win within each of the players on both teams. They all have their reasons. And the thing about them, both teams are mature. They've been around. They've suffered defeat. They've had some bad moments, and now they've worked to get to where they are. To say one has got more motivation than the other, I don't know. I couldn't put my money on that. I think they're both have good reasons to win this game, if nothing more than just to win the game. But I think they all have a lot more, and I think the character, and when you have good character kids, that's when it really shows, and that's when it makes a difference. So you're going to see that from both teams, and I think both coaches, and you couldn't get a finer game. These are the two best teams in the Mid-American Conference, without a doubt, in my opinion, and it's going to be an interesting game.
Rich, appreciate it. Paul Peck, appreciate it. Scott Wilson, appreciate it, guys. Looking forward to seeing all of you in Detroit and what Friday night may have. Paul, I'll let you get back to our boy Jim Boeheim behind you.
Are they winning yet? Oh, they're down by 4.
Well, maybe not. See you guys this weekend.